Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Volta TST call. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is recorded and will be published on YouTube, so please be mindful of what you share and any comments you make. So having said that, I think the first order of business is the fact that Volta 2.4 has been released. I'll let Suraf do the honors and give a little bit background on that.
Actually, I don't really have much to say. We have the documentation online in the official docs.volta.org. If you scroll all the way down, there is we should see 2.4 release notes. Yeah, 2.4 release notes. Might have to select the right version from all the way down in the on the left-hand side. But yeah, we had a number of different features in there. But we've already talked about this, and we also upgraded to the latest versions of Kubernetes and Helm, and we've updated the documentation. There are a few known issues, so that's also mentioned in the release notes. And yeah, so 2.4, the big item really was that all three workflows are now supported in this particular release of Volta, together with ONA's 2.2.3 version that was released at the same time. Andrea, feel free to add more.
No. If anybody wants to see a full Jira list of what was accomplished, it was put into a Drive document here that basically mimics what it's written down in the page, plus all the Jira issues that were closed. Apart from that, yes, the release notes also contain, and this is very important for everybody who's looking at deploying exactly the version. If you want to deploy it manually without the use of kind Volta, just go for exactly specific versions of the charts and the components, and you should be good to go. Just don't forget that we have updated. If you go from 2.3 release to 2.4 release, you need to upgrade the ONL on your GPON because given the move to BAL 3.4, a new ONL is needed, specifically this version here, and you need a new deb package for your OLT. Another important thing that is now officially supported in the upstream version is the in-band management. For that, we provide, this is being tested on the XGS PON, and there is an image that you can find on the EdgeCore website for that one too. Yeah, apart from that, everything else has been reported here. So feel free to take a look at the page, and if there are any questions, as always, you can forward them to the TST. Okay, before we go forward to the 2.5 roadmap, is there any questions, anything related to the 2.4 release that we need to address? No? Okay. Then, if not, as was requested last TST, given the fact that we released 2.4, we have put together, especially SERP has put together a 2.5 roadmap. So I'll let him comment on it and give some more detail.
Right. So this roadmap is a result of TST discussions. Also, TST presented this to the operators, I think actually about a couple of weeks back. So basically it highlights sort of the operator's top remaining priorities, and a lot of this is already in motion actually. So that's why you see this status ongoing in a bunch of places. So I'll go through these one at a time, but not spend too much time on it. If you have questions, feel free to ask. So when it comes to features, we've had Andrea leading the device management interface brigade. So that work was started in the 2.4 release cycle. That work is ongoing, of course, and will continue. Same thing with the Golang conversion of the OpenONU adapter and the OMCI library. That work was also started earlier this year by Adtran, and that work will continue in the second half of the year. And logging work that Infosys has been working on in the pod management brigade, the Voltha FCAPS brigade. Previously with Scott, now with David. So that work will also run to completion in the 2.5 timeframe. Now, we said that 2.4 supports the TT workflow. It does, but we do have to configure certain MAC addresses, RG MAC addresses, for certain services that cannot be differentiated by the VLAN tags, just using the VLAN tags, because all the subscribers share the same tagging, and therefore they need to be differentiated by MAC address. And right now we configure those MAC addresses, but the real solution, of course, is to learn those MAC addresses. So there is a MAC learning app that is already there in ONOS, but we are trying to figure out the best way to integrate that into with the rest of the apps, really. So that work has been done by Gamze at Netsia, and we're still in discussions about the best way to implement MAC learning for the Turk Telecom workflow. Could be useful in the future also when we get to Deutsche Telekom's FTTB workflow. In that case as well, there is a need for MAC learning. Okay, so that work's ongoing. So ONOS meter store fixes, these are things we have learned from experience and have, you know, the meter store today works, but in certain HA scenarios, it has some shortcomings. And Pierre has actually fixed this shortcomings at scale for the group store in ONOS in a different project. And he is taking all that learning and applying it to the meter store as well. So that work, again, as you will see under testing, high availability for ONOS is something that we will have to do in the 2.5 timeframe. So, and as a result, getting those meter store upgrades in is really useful. So Pierre and Andrea are looking into that. In fact, they already have some patches in Gerrit. Okay, the next big feature that was requested was a security feature. So to have the gRPC connection between, let's say, the open OLT adapter or any OLT adapter with, the communication with the actual physical OLT, to have that communication be secured. Mainly because, the OLT can be physically in a different location and be managed in-band from um, from the central office where Voltha is physically instantiated. So the gRPC communication between the OLT adapter and the physical OLT needs to be secured. And I do believe that Hardik is from Infosys is working on it. Any questions so far on the features that I've already mentioned? Okay, so moving on. The next feature is about actually using multiple Nni ports. Or if you take the EdgeCore XGS-PON OLT example, there's right now we are only using one upstream Nni port out of the 4 that are possible on that OLT. But so the requirement is that we use at least 2 in a lag, so that their aggregate bandwidth is 200 gigs going to the aggregation switch. And so this story is about using multiple Nni, at least 2 Nni ports, lagging them together, and then on the switch side, also doing the same thing, basically a static lag of 2 physical switch ports that are connected to the same OLT. So we will be looking at some approaches for doing that on the EdgeCore OLTs, as well as the EdgeCore switches that we use as the aggregation device in SIBA. Software upgrades is another feature. It's a pretty big story. It can actually span multiple features. So, for example, the OLT firmware upgrades. That is something that actually the device management interface brigade is already looking into it as part of that interface. It's best done outside of Voltha, that is. So the TST agrees that the right place for doing OLT software upgrades is in fact in the device management brigade and the device management interface. So Andrea leads that brigade. He's looking into that one. ONU software upgrades has to happen via OMCI, and this is a feature that actually was implemented in the Voltha 1.x version a few years ago, but was never ported to the 2.x version. So I believe Amit and Radisys are looking into porting that feature into the OMCI library in 2.x. So right now they're looking at doing it in the Python version. Eventually, when the Golang version of the adapter catches up, that feature will have to be re-implemented. But it should be a much lower barrier to port the Python version from Voltha 1.x to 2.5. So yeah, Amit is looking into that. And then, so other than the hardware, or rather the software upgrades in the hardware, there's also the software upgrades for various components, Voltha stack components, ONOS and ONOS apps. And I'm not sure how much of this we will get to in 2.5, but David from the TST is going to take a look at some ideas. So it needs to go through a design phase. Okay. The few other features are related to transaction model between the core and the adapters, some cleanup work in the Volta core. This has been ongoing since the Volta 2.4 timeframe. So Ken and Kent, I missed a T over there for Ken. So yeah, Ken and Kent from Siena are looking into this. This is very much ongoing work, and it's close to getting done from what I hear. So we expect this will be done in the 2.5 timeframe. And I think I skipped over differentiate OLT disconnect from reboot. So this is the case where when the OLT adapter loses connectivity with the physical OLT, right now the assumption is that the OLT has rebooted, and so this is a as a result of this, the entire system sort of cleans up state, and when the connection is established or re-established, all state is again pushed down from ONOS, and so it's a full flush of the system and then a restart, right? Which is good when it is a real physical reboot of the OLT. But that's not always the case because, well, like I said, the OLT can be physically at a different location, managed in-band. There could be network issues in between that could be, in fact, temporary. So you may temporarily lose connection with the physical OLT, but that doesn't mean that the physical OLT has lost all its state, as would happen in a reboot. So there must be a way for us to, in this temporary disconnection scenario, not get rid of all state in Volta and ONOS, not have to restart and repush everything. So there is a need to have the stack. This is a improvement of the Volta on a stack, and a way to differentiate between a temporary disconnection and an entire physical reboot of the OLT. So we intend to work on that in 2.5 timeframe as well. There's also a lot of cleanup required for our protos. There's some duplications across protos, things that are not used anymore, some inefficient use of lists and not maps, and so on. Both Mahir and Ken from the TST are looking into those. And David has expressed an interest in redoing kind Volta to be more Helm-like, instead of having an actual command that does Volta up. You could just look at a values.yaml file, just like Helm looks at. So this is something that David is keen on working on, and so I have that in the list right now, and we'll see. Besides testing all of the above, any new feature that comes in, there's also tests that we have planned for stuff that is already in there. So we do need to get more telecom workflow tests into our nightly regression testing. And Mahir and Netsia will look to resource that. We also do need to do multi-OLT testing on the same physical Volta stack. We have done that at scale, but in scale, we don't exercise all possibilities. So we intend to build that into our regression testing um, um, for integration tests. So you take down one OLT, does the other OLT still function? If they're all working in the same stack, so one does not affect the other, things like that. Those are things that are not built into the scale testing, but can be easily done into our integration tests. We do intend to start soaking a release, maybe the last release. There are things that you will only find once things have been running for a month, 2 months, and more. So we do intend to create a physical pod that can soak a particular release. And we can observe its effects. And as I mentioned before, we have ONOS high availability testing for to include for the ONOS cluster and the clustered applications running on ONOS. And finally, we have a bunch of features that are going in specifically for scale. So Andrea, if you can scroll down. Yeah, thank you. There is work that Sarkanth from Netsia he's doing that for multiple Volta stacks and being able to ensure that the system functions correctly in the presence of multiple Volta stacks. So that work was also started in the 2.4 timeframe. It's ongoing. In the meantime, of course, the BBSIM and Scalability Brigade does focus on single stack improvements. For example, right now, our HCD is run in memory, but if it is persisted, there are differences in our scale measurements. So that's something to look into. There are also other places where there may be the need for more granular locks. So that's actually missing as well. And eventually the Golang version of the ONU adapter and the OMCI library will be brought into the stack. So these are all examples of single stack improvements that the BBSIM and Scalability Brigade looks into. There is also the need for us to understand, given all the improvements in a single stack, what is our limit on the number of OLTs and the number of ONUs a single stack can support, given the CPU and memory consumption of that stack. So there is a need to develop some sizing numbers, so you can use those numbers to get a rough idea about the servers that you would have to deploy for a particular deployment scale, right? Something that you can project that, okay, if a single stack that can support X number of OLTs and X number of ONUs, given this much CPU and memory resources, if I now want to scale this to 20 OLTs and 60,000, 30, 80,000 ONUs, okay, what kind of resources do I need in my edge cloud? So the BBSIM and Scalability Brigade has developed sort of a design document for this kind of estimation and what kind of measurements we'll have to take, which we refer to as a sizing matrix. So the matrix is of the kinds of measurements that we will have to make for us to get reasonably comfortable with the sizing numbers for a single stack supporting, say, one OLT with 1,000 ONUs or two OLTs with 2,000 ONUs and so on. So if you're interested in that information, do join the BBCM and Scalability Brigade. And finally, we have scale tested both AT&T and Deutsche Telekom workflows. So in 2.4, one of the achievements was that we met our scale targets of a single Voltha stack supporting 2 OLTs with 500 ONUs each. But we were only able to do this for the AT&T and DT workflows, not for the Turk Telecom one, mainly because the Turk Telecom workflow wasn't supported yet in BBCM in its entirety. So there is work that is ongoing to add TT workflow support to BBCM. So we are pretty sure that'll be done in the 2.5 timeframe as well. Okay, so with that, if you have any questions on what is planned for 2.5, do bring it out now or bring it up in on Slack or an email on the mailing list. Let us know.
Thanks, Seraph. Any questions from the group? Anything that's missing that you think it would be needed? Any comments?
There's been some comments lately on how the multiple OLTs can talk to the Open ONU device adapter, either the Go version or the Python version, you know, the messaging. So that, I think that was an area of investigation that's been mentioned.
By multiple OLTs? You mean
yeah, with one with one Open ONU device adapter of either flavor running, and you have different vendor OLTs running in the same Kubernetes setup. So Open OLT, Atran, or Tibet being able to use the same Open ONU device adapters, you know, having a per handler capability.
Oh yes, I did see Ken chime in on that one from the TST. That I think it's perfectly fine to have different instances of the Open ONU adapter for different OLTs, right? So for example, if you bring up an Edge Core OLT and you use the Open OLT adapter, the ONUs for that Edge Core OLT can be assigned to an ONU adapter instance. But in the same deployment, if you bring up an Atran OLT, then the ONUs on the Atran OLT can be assigned to a completely different instance of the ONU adapter. So the same ONU adapter does not actually have to talk to different OLT adapters for the ONUs that are assigned to it. I believe this was the conclusion. I could be wrong. Anybody else wants to chime in on this?
So I will say that in an ideal world, and this will happen actually once we'll have the Golang version of the OpenONU adapter, a single adapter should be able to talk with multiple OLT adapter. But for now, achieving that will be a fair amount of work and a fair amount of testing required that we believe is not justified, given that we know that the OpenNU adapter in the Python implementation has a fairly low limit in number of ONUs that you can support. So if you are running with multiple OLTs, most likely you'll need multiple instances of the OpenNU adapter anyway. And so at that point, you can divide them between the two adapters without requiring any additional work.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to bring it up. We had talked about it on Monday, so I just wanted to bring it up. I'm happy with running a ONU adapter per OLT. So,
yeah, okay.
Device type.
Yeah, so that makes sense. It's probably good enough for now. So we don't intend to, yeah, so that's why it's not on the list. Any other questions? Anyone? Okay, Andrea?
Yep. So thanks, Raf. So there was scheduled for now a discussion around the security of the OpenOLT connection to the OpenOLT agent. Unfortunately, Hardy cannot join because he got a last-minute appointment at the doctor and he cannot skip it. So I can give a brief introduction, but he will talk more about it next week. The idea, as Surf said, is that we want to secure the connection between the agent and the adapter in order to make sure that whenever we are connecting, especially in band to the OLT, we are not exposing any traffic of control traffic in a clear manner. There was some investigation that Hardik did this week around this, and you can follow that in these two JIRAs. And basically what we have right now is that wherever the connection is instantiated, there is no the gRPC is with insecure connection, both on the OpenOLT adapter, as you can see here, and the OpenOLT agent, as you can see here, insecure server credentials. So what needs to be done is that we need to build in an option to have this start in a secure manner. First the server on the OLT agent side, and then the client on the adapter side that connects to it. And then we will have a way to ensure certification management. That still has to need some investigation on exactly how to have a common cert that can be used by both of them. So if you have any comments, I would encourage you to add it to Hardik's JIRAs here. And that's going to be talked more about it more in depth next week, where Hardik will be present at the meeting. So I encourage everybody to take a look. If there are any questions that I can address right now or any immediate comments that you guys want to make, I can make sure Hardik gets them before next week's meeting. Any questions about this? Nope. Okay. That was all I had on the agenda for today. But before we go, I always want to open up the floor to anybody who has any topic that he wants to bring up in front of the TST, given the fact that we are all here. I would really encourage anybody who has any questions, any thoughts, to share them now, given that we have a little bit of time, and that doesn't always occur. So anybody has anything that wants to share with the group? Then if not, thanks everybody. We'll get 20 minutes back of our day for getting some of the things that are written in here done. So I'll post the recording as usual as soon as it's converted, and we'll send out an email. Thanks everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.